It was early morning. Dark clouds hung low over the small town in Texas. Rain had been falling for 2 days without stopping. The streets were full of water. Cars were floating. Houses were half under water. People stood on rooftops, waving their hands, crying for help. It was a disaster. The kind of disaster where every minute mattered. In the middle of all this, a rescue boat moved slowly through the flooded streets. A woman stood on top of her sinking car. She was holding a little girl in her arms. Her face was full of fear. She screamed, "Please! Help us! My baby can't swim." The rescue boat came closer. But when she saw who was driving, her voice shook. It was Officer Ryan. A senior rescue officer. He looked at her, then looked away. He turned the boat around. He didn't say a word. The woman shouted louder, "Please! Don't leave us!" But he kept going. He picked up 2 white families from nearby, ignoring everyone else. The woman was left behind in rising water. What Ryan didn't know, someone was recording. A quiet volunteer standing nearby had caught everything on his phone. His hands were shaking. His heart was racing. He couldn't believe what he had seen. But he knew one thing: this video could change everything. And soon, it would. The town of Riverview had never seen rain like this before. It had been pouring for 2 days straight. The river had overflowed. The streets had turned into rivers. Cars were floating like paper boats. Trees had fallen. Power lines were down. People were stuck inside their homes with no way out. Water had reached the windows of houses. In some places, it had covered the rooftops. Families held each other, scared and helpless. Some climbed to their roofs, waving towels and bed sheets, hoping someone would see them. Children were crying. Elderly people were trapped without food or medicine. The town's rescue team was out, but they were not enough. Boats moved slowly through the water, trying to help as many as possible. Sirens could be heard in the distance, but many felt forgotten. There was panic everywhere. Some tried to swim but were pulled under by strong currents. People shouted for help, but not everyone was heard. In the middle of this chaos, Officer Ryan stood in his rescue boat. He wore his uniform. He looked calm. But no one knew what he was about to do. No one knew that he had already decided who was worth saving and who was not. Angela held her baby tightly. The water was rising fast inside her small house. Her 2-year-old son clung to her leg, shivering. Their food was gone. The electricity had stopped the day before. She tried calling emergency services again. Her voice was tired and full of fear. "Please," she said. "We need help. My children are scared. We're trapped." The line went quiet for a second. Then she heard a cold voice. It was Officer Ryan. "What's your address?" he asked. She gave it quickly. He paused, then said flatly, "We'll send someone if we can." The call ended. But no one came. Across the street, Malik, her neighbor, was standing on a chair in his flooded living room. Water was already past his knees. He was a strong man, but now he looked worried. He had tried calling too, but no one answered. He saw a rescue boat far away and waved both hands. He even tied a white cloth to a stick. He shouted, "Hey! We need help here." The boat came closer. It was Officer Ryan again. Malik sighed with relief and started calling louder. But Ryan didn't stop. He looked right at them and shook his head. "No space," he said. Then he turned the boat in the other direction. Angela stepped outside her door, holding her baby high. "Please! My children," she screamed. Ryan didn't respond. He picked up 3 people from a nearby house, an older white couple and a teenage girl. He didn't even glance back. Malik stood frozen. His hands slowly dropped. Angela began to cry. The flood didn't just bring water that day. It brought something worse, silence from the ones who were supposed to help. Derek was standing a few blocks away, wearing a bright orange vest. He was one of the new rescue volunteers. Only 24 years old, full of energy, and eager to help. He had joined the team just 3 weeks earlier. He believed in doing the right thing. He believed in saving lives, no matter who they belonged to. He had seen Officer Ryan ignore Angela. He had seen the rescue boat turn away from Malik. Derek had heard the mother's cries. And he had seen the officer pick up other people from safer homes while leaving those in real danger behind. His stomach turned. His hands trembled. He wanted to shout, "Why are you doing this?" But he stayed quiet. He looked around. No one else was watching. No one else seemed to care. Something inside him said this wasn't right. This wasn't how rescue teams were supposed to act. So, he pulled out his phone. Slowly. Carefully. He turned on the camera and began recording. He zoomed in as Officer Ryan's boat floated past another drowning family. He captured the officer's face, cold and blank. No emotion. No shame. Only power. And choice. Derek didn't know what he would do with the video yet. But deep in his heart, he felt that this moment, this truth, had to be saved. Someone had to know what really happened out here. The world needed to see it. Even if the town wanted to keep it quiet. Angela knew no help was coming. The water had reached her chest. Her baby was crying, cold and hungry. Her little boy sat on the windowsill, his feet shaking. She looked around her tiny house. There was no boat. No raft. Nothing but floating furniture and broken pieces of wood. She took a deep breath. She had to do something. She couldn't let her children drown. Angela grabbed 2 empty trash bins from outside. She tied them together with an old bedsheet. She found a large plastic container lid to use as a paddle. Then she wrapped her baby in plastic bags to keep her dry. Her hands moved fast, though her heart was full of fear. Malik saw her struggling. He rushed over, wading through the water. "You can't go alone," he said. Angela shook her head. "I have to." Malik didn't argue. He helped her lift the kids into the homemade raft. He tied a rope around his waist and held onto the raft tightly. Together, they pushed the raft through the flooded street. The current was strong. At one point, the raft nearly tipped. Angela screamed, but Malik held on. "I got you," he said, even though his arms were shaking. They passed houses where people stood at windows, afraid to move. No one else had a boat. No one came to help. But Angela and Malik kept going. Their feet scraped the ground. Sharp objects floated around them. But nothing mattered more than getting the children to safety. No officers, no sirens, no rescue. Just 2 forgotten neighbors, doing what love and courage told them to do. Derek couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about Angela. About Malik. About all the people Officer Ryan had left behind. He remembered the baby crying. He remembered the silence on Ryan's face. The video on his phone replayed in his mind over and over. The next morning, he didn't go back to the rescue center. He didn't check in with the team. Instead, he filled a backpack with water bottles, dry snacks, and a flashlight. He borrowed a small kayak from a neighbor. Then he went out on his own. He paddled into the flooded areas that were ignored. The neighborhoods that Ryan's team never entered. He knocked on windows. He called out through the water. He didn't wear a uniform, but to the people he helped, he was the only real rescue worker that day. He found an old man stuck in his attic. The man hadn't eaten for 2 days. Derek pulled him out through a broken window and gave him water. He found a sick woman trapped in a wheelchair. Her hands were blue from the cold. He calmed her down and helped her onto the kayak, whispering, "You're safe now." Then, he saw Angela again. She was sitting on the porch of an abandoned building. The kids were wrapped in a wet blanket. Malik stood beside them, tired but still alert. When they saw Derek, Angela stood up quickly. Are you here to help?" she asked. Derek nodded. "I saw what happened. I'm sorry." Angela didn't say anything for a moment. Then tears filled her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Derek gave them food and water. He listened to their story. He sat beside them like a friend. Not as a hero. Just someone who cared. He learned that this wasn't the first time Officer Ryan had ignored them. He had done this before, in smaller ways. Quiet racism. Hidden choices. But no one had ever proved it, until now. Derek looked at his phone. He had the proof. But would anyone believe him? That night, Derek sat alone in his small apartment. His clothes were still wet. His hands were sore from paddling. But his heart felt heavier than anything else. He opened his phone and watched the video again. Officer Ryan ignoring Angela. Turning away from Malik. The cold look on his face. The screams. The silence. Derek's own breathing could be heard in the background. He felt anger. But also fear. What if people didn't believe it? What if they blamed him for speaking out? Ryan was respected in the town. He had worked in the rescue department for over 20 years. People trusted him. Some even called him a hero. But Derek knew what he saw. He knew what was right. He took a deep breath and uploaded the video. He didn't add music. He didn't add text. Just the raw footage. Real and uncut. He shared it on social media with a simple caption, "Not everyone was saved. Some were left behind. Watch this." At first, nothing happened. A few views. A couple of comments. But then, it started to spread. One person shared it. Then 10. Then hundreds. By morning, it had thousands of views. People were angry. People were shocked. Some cried. Some demanded action. Local news picked it up. Then national news. Headlines appeared, "Rescue officer refuses to help black flood victims." Caught on camera, racism during rescue. Derek's phone buzzed non-stop. Messages poured in. Some called him brave. Others told him to stay quiet. But the truth was already out. And it couldn't be hidden again. In that moment, everything changed. By sunrise, the town was no longer quiet. News vans lined the streets. Reporters stood with microphones in front of flooded homes. Cameramen zoomed in on the rooftops where people had cried for help just days before. And in the center of it all, was Officer Ryan's face. The video had gone viral. Everyone had seen it, people in the town, people across the country. It played again and again on TV and online. His name was trending on social media. But not in a good way. At the rescue center, Ryan walked in as if nothing had happened. He wore his uniform. He stood tall. But his face looked tense. His coworkers stared at him in silence. Some looked down. Others turned away. One young officer finally asked, "Is it true?" Ryan said nothing. He walked into his office and closed the door. Outside, reporters tried to speak to anyone who would talk. Some townspeople defended Ryan. "He's a good man," they said. "He's served this town for years." But others were angry. "If that was your family left in the flood, would you still say that?" Angela stayed quiet. She didn't want the cameras. She didn't want attention. She only wanted justice. And safety for her children. Meanwhile, Derek watched it all from his window. He didn't speak to the press. He didn't look for fame. But deep down, he knew what he did was right. He hadn't lied. He had only told the world what it refused to see. The storm outside was ending. But the real storm was just beginning. The town of Riverview was no longer the same. People were divided. Some stood with Officer Ryan, calling him misunderstood. They said the video didn't show the full story. He saved so many lives, they claimed. Don't forget that. They left comments online defending him. Some even blamed the victims, saying, they should have left earlier, or, why didn't they prepare? But others were furious. They had seen enough. They had heard enough. For years, people in the black community had felt ignored. Treated as less. They now had proof. A video that spoke louder than any words. Angela did not go on TV. She didn't give speeches. But she joined the crowd that stood outside the city hall, holding signs with quiet strength. One read, "We matter too." Another, "Floods didn't drown us, silence did." Malik stood beside her. He had lived in the town his whole life. He said, "We don't want revenge. We want fairness." More people joined them. Not just black families. White neighbors too. Teachers, nurses, shopkeepers. Even a few off-duty rescue workers came, quietly showing support. The mayor couldn't stay silent anymore. Under growing pressure, he called for a public inquiry. "This video is disturbing," he said. "We will investigate." That night, the town was quiet again. But it wasn't the same quiet as before. It was the kind of silence that comes before change. Before truth rises. And for the first time, Angela felt something she hadn't felt in days. Not fear. Not anger. Hope. The very next morning, an official letter was posted outside the rescue department. It read, "Officer Ryan is temporarily suspended pending investigation." People gathered to read it. Some nodded. Some clapped. Others walked away silently. Inside City Hall, an emergency panel was formed. Lawyers, town leaders, and community elders sat around a long table. News reporters waited outside the doors, their cameras ready. Officer Ryan was called in for questioning. He wore a plain shirt this time. No uniform. No badge. He looked tired, but not sorry. They asked him simple questions. "Did you refuse to help families during the flood?" He replied, "I helped who I could." "Did you ignore certain areas on purpose?" "I went where I thought help was needed most." His answers were cold. Careful. Like someone reading from a script. But the video said something else. It showed a pattern. A choice. A heart that didn't care for all. At the same time, Derek was called in. He sat quietly in front of the panel, holding his phone. They asked him why he recorded the video. He looked them in the eyes and said, "Because it was wrong. And no one else was doing anything." The room fell silent for a moment. Then someone whispered, "Thank you." Outside, people waited for answers. They didn't want empty words. They wanted change. And deep in the hearts of many, a new truth was rising. Even in the darkest storms, someone brave enough to speak up can bring light. Just when things seemed to settle, a new voice stepped forward. His name was Tom, Officer Ryan's older brother. A quiet man who had served as a fireman in the same town for over 30 years. People respected him. He wasn't the kind to speak without reason. But this time, he had something to say. At the town meeting held in the school gym, Tom stood up in front of everyone. His hands were shaking. His voice was calm, but heavy. "I've kept silent for too long," he said. "But after watching that video, I can't anymore." Everyone turned to look at him. Cameras started rolling. Reporters leaned forward. "I love my brother," he said. "But I won't defend what he did." Gasps filled the room. Then he continued. "This wasn't the first time. I've seen it for years." He would make excuses. Skip calls to certain neighborhoods. Talk down to black families. I warned him. But he said things I never thought I'd hear from someone in uniform. Some people in the crowd had tears in their eyes. Others were stunned. Tom looked around the room. "I stayed quiet because he was family. But silence is no longer an option. I failed too. But now, I'm speaking up." Angela was in the back of the room. She placed her hand on her chest. Malik whispered, "He finally said it." For the first time, someone close to Ryan had told the truth. It wasn't just a bad decision in a crisis. It was a pattern. A deep, hidden stain that had been there for years. The crowd stood in silence. And in that moment, something broke, not just Ryan's image, but the wall that had protected him for so long. Officer Ryan sat alone in his house. The blinds were closed. The TV was off. His phone was silent. Not one call. Not one message. He had been suspended. His name was on every news channel. His picture was everywhere online. But not as a hero. As a warning. His wife had packed her bags 2 nights ago. She didn't say much. Just looked at him with tired eyes. "I don't know who you are anymore," she whispered. She took their daughter and left. Now the house felt empty. Cold. Quiet. Ryan sat at the kitchen table, watching the video again on his phone. His hands trembled slightly. He turned the volume up. Angela's voice screamed, "Help us." His boat turned away. His face, calm and uncaring. He pressed pause. He stared at the screen. For the first time, he really saw himself. Not the uniform. Not the badge. Just himself. And he didn't like what he saw. He thought about the people he had ignored. The cries he had tuned out. The families who waited for help that never came. The excuses he had made. Over and over. He whispered to himself, "I was just doing my job." But even he didn't believe that anymore. He stood up and walked to the mirror. His reflection stared back. A man who had worn power like armor. A man who now had nothing left to hide behind. For the first time in a long time, he felt small. Weeks passed. The floodwaters had finally gone down. Streets were muddy. Houses were damaged. But slowly, the town began to heal. People were rebuilding, together. Strangers helped strangers. Neighbors shared food and supplies. The storm had hurt many, but it had also opened eyes. Angela stood outside a small aid center, waiting for a ride. Her baby was asleep on her shoulder. Her son stood beside her, holding her hand. She looked tired, but stronger. She had survived. Not just the flood, but something deeper. She had faced the kind of pain that doesn't always leave visible scars. Just then, she saw a familiar figure. A man wearing old jeans and a plain jacket was helping an elderly black couple into a van. He moved slowly, gently. He didn't speak much. Just listened. Helped. Then moved on to someone else. Angela stared. It was Ryan. No badge. No uniform. No cameras. Just a man, quiet and alone. He turned slightly and saw her watching. Their eyes met. He froze for a second. His face showed shame. Regret. But not pride. Angela didn't speak. She didn't look away either. She gave a small nod. Nothing big. Just a silent message. And Ryan nodded back. There were no speeches. No big apologies. No dramatic music. Just a moment, real and honest. Because sometimes, change doesn't come with noise. Sometimes, it comes quietly, through pain, through truth, and through choice. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. Speak up when you see injustice. Don't wait for a flood to show who we really are. Be the voice when others are silent. Be the help when others turn away. And remember, sometimes the smallest action can create the biggest change. Like, comment, share. Because stories like this, they aren't just fiction. They're a reflection.